Kim.
Hey, Marcia.
What time is it?
I think it's 4:20.
Wonderful.
It's 4:20 at the demystification of Mary Jane. It's always 4:20 here.
4:20 somewhere.
Always.
So let's do what we need to do here, and then we're going to start talking. We've got lots to say.
Yeah. To some things we discovered this week that you can discover too, but we want to share them with you because we were here to demystify.
Yeah, and what I would like to point out or share with everyone is the relationship between marijuana and hemp. Hemp is, you can look at hemp and marijuana as cousins. They are both in the cannabis sativa family. Hemp is one of the fastest growing plants known to man. It matures in 3 to 4 months. One of the first plants ever to be spun into fiber 10,000 years ago was hemp. It can be refined into a variety of commercial items, including paper, textiles, clothing, biodegradable plastics, paint, insulation, biofuel, food, and animal feed. And although hemp is derived from cannabis sativa, hemp has a low concentration of THC, almost at times undetectable. THC is tetrahydrocannabinol, and that is the psychoactive component in cannabis sativa known as marijuana. But hemp has a higher concentration of CBD, the cannabidiol, which eliminates or decreases the psychoactive effect of the THC, which is almost non-existent anyway in hemp. So it's not suitable for smoking or extracting oil or anything. Anyway, so the perception of hemp is generally negative because it's associated with marijuana, which is also a variety of cannabis sativa in the same family called cannabis sativa. So this perception is the legacy of a century of powerful influences, which we're going to talk about, construing hemp as a dangerous drug, even though it's not a drug. And it actually has great profitability potential to boost our economy. But it's been chastised and categorized incorrectly, and that brings us to our discussion for this evening, and that is, I'm going to turn it over to Kim. The discussion is we're going to go back a few years and work our way forward. So, Kim.
Yeah, like we were talking last week about the ancients using marijuana and making the reference to the 10,000 years of marijuana. There was one of our astronomers from the 70s, 1977, Carl Sagan, and I have been reading up on Carl Sagan, and he was a very interesting gentleman, actually, very PhD, very educated astronomer, cosmologist, number of things. Came to the conclusion that agriculture, about sustainable agriculture, and that is another bonus points about hemp, is that it grows anywhere and it grows over and over and over again. So it's wonderful for the earth. So this agriculture, our civilization, humans, go back 250,000 years. So an agriculture was created 10,000 years ago, which makes it relatively new, a new process for people to grow food. So what Carl Sagan is implying and suggesting, that agriculture is not normal. It is a human invention. It is also the basis for modern civilization. Thus, this part was touched on, this point is touched on by Carl Sagan when he proposes that cannabis sativa may have actually been the first actual thing that was ever cultivated, actually. Yeah, cultivated. So then thus began, civilization as it has progressed, as you know, and become to what we know it today, and leading to the definite modernization, of civilization. So that's a lot of like glory, So anyway, going on to, and then leading up to, we wanted to jump ahead into this little factoid,
Into
which
the
is
1700s.
Yes,
so we're going from what, 10,000 years ago
Yes.
to just a few hundred years ago.
Actually, yes, that period of time where
Anything in between, there is documentation of marijuana being used medicinally.
Medicinally.
So if you want to read about that
yes.
before the 1700s,
all the way through.
you can Google that.
Yes,
There's
medicinally.
lots to read.
Yes, lots of Mary Jane traveled all over the world. Her travels were plenty. I mean, originating actually from China, but jumping up into America where we live, into our late 1794, actually, George Washington, the first president of the United States, rode as
Father of our country.
Yes, father of our country. Wrote in his letters to his ranch, his plantation manager, make the most of the Indian hemp seed, sow it everywhere. And thusly, in the same period of time, late 1700s, while our beloved president, third president as a matter of fact, Thomas Jefferson, was an ambassador in France, he actually had Turkish smugglers, oh my, smuggle the hemp seed in from industrial hemp is what they called it, and it was the best plant in the world. And
from China.
Yes, they smuggled it in from China, his Turkish smugglers, and Thomas Jefferson himself smuggled it back to America in his pants pockets. Okay, he brought it back to his plantation and thusly grew hemp. And so, because it multiplies so quickly and it's so industrial, it's a very hardworking,
It's a hardy plant.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah. So basically, the moral of that story is that our third president, Thomas Jefferson, was a drug smuggler.
Yes, according to the standards of the DEA today.
Today, that's right.
Our
that
third
would make
president
our third
is a drug
president
smuggler.
a drug
Yes.
smuggler.
So just
Right.
that's a little factoid
Put
there.
that in your pipe
okay.
and smoke it.
And we haven't even gotten to the funny stuff yet.
Yeah.
So these are, and one of the things that I read also was that, the author of this article that I read about Thomas Jefferson suggested that even Thomas Jefferson knew a stupid law when he saw it. Okay. Founding, father of our country knew a stupid law when he saw it.
So he smuggled it. He said, fuck this,
because he
it in.
knew, right? Yeah. That he knows. You know what you know. So, yes, okay. So then medicinally used from the medicinally used 1850 through 1915. And thusly, and then we're going to celebrate getting into the 1920s, which is like when Prohibition comes into play, right? We were delighted by the fact of like really getting that factoid down, is that our get your little prop there. Our neighbors from the South actually brought marijuana into our country in the 1920s. Yay! Thank you, Mexico.
You. Muchas gracias, amigos. Seriously, thank you, Mexico,
yes, from the bottom of
introducing
our heart. For sure.
Americans
definitely
to recreational marijuana.
Hey, smoke this. It makes you feel better. It makes you happy. Your food's going to taste amazing, and you're going to have a great conversation.
Right.
Or listen to some awesome music. That just might happen.
Or it helps my pain. I work really hard all day long.
Picking up strawberries
and
off
then
the ground.
I use this, and it helps me to relax.
Yes.
And, enhance my life.
Yes.
So anyway.
And another add-on fact to that was Congress, the government.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And William Randolph Hearst got a hold of the fact that there was 25% of these Mexican immigrants actually selling recreational marijuana. Of course, because that's what you do, right? So they weren't getting a piece of that pie. So thusly creating a Marijuana Tax Act in 1937, which basically made marijuana
it impossible. The tax was so high
$100 an ounce.
$100 an ounce at that time.
In 1937.
Right.
Which was like $100,000 an ounce,
Yeah.
you know.
So ridiculous.
Impossible,
And of course, the immigrants couldn't pay that tax, so it became illegal for them then to sell marijuana for recreational use to Americans or to anybody or to even have it. So anyway,
we go into this propagandist machine, which was William Randolph Hearst newspapers. There were 4 major players, richest men in America at this time in the late 30s, and you can look that up too. Harry Anslinger was one of them. He was actually what they developed the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, which grew up and became modern day DEA. So you can picture that. So this is the first director of it. So he is launching a slaughter, a literal burn down slaughter of marijuana, and it's like comical in a sense. I have really laughed at some of the stuff that I've read, and one of the things that the man said was that if the hideous monster Frankenstein came face to face with the monster marijuana, he would drop dead from fright. So who does that sound like today? Who does that sound like? That was given to people, you know, listening to their radios. I mean, there was just the movie theaters, which was, you know, frying marijuana in reefer madness, and the radio. So these people were developing these images. He was a brilliant marketer. I mean, he was giving that big green face and, you know, scaring people. And you know what? At that very same time is when, to prove how gullible our country was and the American people were at the time, in the same year, that is when Orson Welles did his War of the Worlds, which was, what the man did a radio show and insinuated and suggested that we were being invaded by Martians, and America bought it. They were terrified. So we were skittish at that time, our country.
We were headed for war.
Susceptible, launching into the,
very
you know,
vulnerable.
The Second World War. So buying all of this, you know, propaganda, and at the time modernization is happening, the population is growing, and they're inflicting like major like lock-up laws is when they hammered down, you know, on possession. I mean, even smoking, having a roach, having any kind of even resin, paraphernalia, you know, anything that suggested that you smoked marijuana, you were hung from your ankles, basically.
Well, and,
you know, so, crazy.
The role that William Randolph Hearst played in all this is that, you know, he was the newspaper mogul. He owned newspapers and magazines. He also owned lumber mills, and the whole business was to buy the paper, or, you know, that was made from the lumber mills. So if hemp, which can mature in 4 months and reproduce 3 times a year a crop, you know, that wouldn't have made William Randolph Hearst any money. So there was a lot of payoffs for laws to be put in place against marijuana use. And that's when they started hammering the association of hemp with marijuana and making people think that hemp was a drug, so that it became classified with, I mean, basically Hearst just wanted it stomped out, get it out of the picture, and that's how that was done, is that it became grouped with cannabis sativa, which is, you know, the family it's in, but it certainly is not a drug. Anyway, enough said about that. That's his role in the whole thing. Mr. Hearst Castle up in San Simeon, dude.
Yeah.